This is my linear unit converter. I decided to do this as my final project for Python because it's something that I use on a regular basis. As an engineering student, I've used many of these conversions. For example, I've used the hours to seconds conversion a lot recently in my thermodynamics and dynamics courses. I use the millimeters to inches conversion at work when we're trying to do different drill bits or just different measurements. I work at the new engineering building as a makerspace technician, so we do a lot of that there. And then this doesn't even stop at work or school. I've actually used this in my personal life. Just the other day, I was doing a pounds to ounces conversion because I was looking at backpacking gear, and they do a lot of that. Every ounce counts. So a lot of companies have their things in pounds, some have them in ounces, and so I was just trying to get them all in one common unit. So we'll kind of start here at the top of the code. First, we define a function called molt, and that has another function inside of it called convert that we've defined, and that actually takes the user's value and multiplies it by the factor that we give it. And we'll actually see this function used in our next function that we define. But first, we'll look here at line 10, where we define our dictionary. So we make a new dictionary called conversions, and we'll be using that throughout the rest of the program. So, and we'll be adding to it, and that's just something that we'll be using throughout this whole process. So our next function is called add pair, and what this does is it actually takes three inputs that it's given. So we'll have a from unit, a to unit, and a factor. So we'll have the unit that the user wants to go from, the unit that the user wants to go to, and then the factor that is one of the from unit to what do you need to multiply that by to get to the to unit. So that might have sounded a little confusing, but it's pretty simple. Multiplies it together, and we actually use that mult factor that we defined in the previous step. So this little add pair function, though, is really handy because we only have to do the first part, and then it also gives us the inverse of what we just did. So we actually get two conversions for the price of one. And then so you'll see I'll actually use that down here. I've added a bunch of conversions that I use on a regular basis. These are the ones that I've added because I use them all the time. And I could add more, but these are the ones that I need. So you can see that I've added 7 and organized them by distance, time, area, mass, and speed. And what is actually really cool about this is I've given it, for example, the kilometers to miles, and then I did the factor from 1 kilometer. What does that need to be multiplied to give me miles? So I did that, and that actually gives me 2 conversions because now I also get miles to kilometers using that add pair function. So it's really nice to use those functions because I don't have to retype the whole add pair function every single time I want to use one of these. I already have it defined. So that's really cool. Then we get to the first part that the user actually gets to see, which is the welcome to the linear unit converter. So it prints that out, and then I did it all caps, just kind of be over the top, get them excited. So then we go into a function that we've defined as menu, or we've defined a function called menu. And this prints out a big long list of the 3 different options that you have in this unit converter. You have your first option, which is to use one of the unit conversions that's already in the dictionary. Your second option, which is to add a new unit conversion to the dictionary. and your third option, which is to quit the program and be done. So that's kind of the first part. And then we define a variable that we'll use a lot later called keys, which is basically just taking all of the keys that we have in the conversions dictionary and turning that into a list. So we'll actually see we use it here, but this is basically just this next part that starts in 43 is what creates the list that the user sees and is able to choose from when they're trying to decide which unit conversion they want. So we have the conversions, and then we take the key out of that, and that becomes our label that we use in our list. And the list goes all the way down our program, and then we add a number in front of it that the user can select that makes it really simple for them to figure out which unit conversion they want. Next, we're going to go to a function that we define as add conversion. And so in this function, we get to do that second option that the user can choose, which is to actually add a new unit conversion to the dictionary. And so it collects a little bit of information from the user, and all they really have to know is the unit that they have, what unit they want to go to, and the factor that they need to go from one of the unit that they have to the other unit. And then you can see that I've added a strip command to the different units, so that way whenever they input those, it'll strip any blank space away, and then we can add that to our list, which will help just keep everything nice and tidy. So we do that. Once it gets those three criteria, we then put that into our add pair function, which is the one that we've been using, and it takes those three criteria and it puts it, it then adds that to our dictionary, and it actually adds both that one and the inverse of what we have. So we actually get a 2-for-1 special right there, which is really cool. And then it lets the user know that that has been added to the dictionary. Next, we get into our main function, which we've defined it as. And this is actually like the heart of the program. This is where the user's interacting with things and things are actually happening on the front. But we're using all of the stuff that we've already established previous to this. So you can see this is where they get to choose like their three options, one of their three options. So we take an input called choice, which will allow them to either choose a number, choose add, or choose done. And we've also added a strip and lower command, so that way if they were to type add with a space in front of it and a capital A, it would handle that and it would be able to still work in this system. So the first choice, if they've typed done, well, pretty simple from there. We just say goodbye, and then the system breaks, and that's it. If they choose add, then we go back up to our add conversion, and it goes through this whole process here starting in 52, where what we just talked about, where it actually takes those three values that it puts in, and then it adds a new conversion to our dictionary. And then the final choice here is we have whatever they did as a choice. If it was, we need them to give us a number, and then we subtract 1 from that. And what that does is it creates the index that Python can understand. Since indexes start at 0 and our list started at 1, we kind of are able to get to where it's the index that it needs. And then we use that keys function, which is our list from earlier that we defined. Where is that at? The keys right here. So it is equal to that list. And so then we know which part of the list that we're looking at now. And so what that does is it takes it here, and we take that key part, which is our kilometers to miles, and then it splits those two into two separate units. So now they're no longer one key, they're two separate values, and then it basically creates a little mini list with two different items in it. And so we can see again that we use, it starts at 0, and then it goes, and then we go to 1 because we have two values. And so our first bit is the unit that we have, and the second bit is the unit that we want. And so we'll use that to kind of tell the user what their different values are later on. And so this X here is the unit that the value that the user inputs that they want to be converted. So this is the numerical value that actually gets multiplied by the factor and then produces the result. And so you can actually see that func X result is where that whole process happens. It does all the other stuff that we've talked about in the previous part of the program, and then it actually multiplies by the factor and then gives us that result. And then we print out a little statement that lets the user know what their converted value is. And that's basically the end of the program, which is really cool. And then all we really have to put is just this if name is equal to main, and then we put the main function, and it just runs that, and it does it over and over because we have this while true part, and the only thing that will break it is if the choice is done. So let's get into some code here. I know we're going a little bit past time, but I want to show you how the program works in actuality. So here's our unit converter here, and so we'll go in and we'll start out with just a basic unit conversion. So let's go pounds to ounces. So we'll go 9, and then you see it says enter your value in pounds. So let's say I'm weighing that's probably too big, but let's say I'm weighing a gallon of water. So let's say that's around 8 pounds, which is roughly going to be 120 ounces, somewhere around in there. So that's basically how easy it is. And you can do, like, let's say it was 8.73 pounds or something. Ooh, 8.73 pounds. So you can see that. Oh, sorry. I didn't put the selection. Let me actually. So we can see if we put in that, if we do 9 again, and let's say it was 8.73 pounds. Now we can plop that in there, and that will also give us the correct amount of ounces. Now let's say we want to add our own. So let's add, enter there, and now it's asking for what unit do you have. Let's say we have grams, and we want ounces. So then we just need to look up the conversion. So if we go here, here's the conversion from grams to ounces. Copy that, come back over here, and we'll paste that into our program. Enter, and now you can see that we have 2 new conversions here, which is pretty cool. And so now we can do that grams to ounces conversion. So we can do 15, and then let's say we have 600 grams, 678.3 grams of something. Oh, 6,000. Yeah, sure, that's fine. So that's 214 ounces. So that's pretty nifty. And then now we can say that we're done. We've got what we needed to know, and then we'll enter that, and then it says goodbye, and that's basically the end of the program. Yeah, I think this was a really cool project. I learned a lot while I was going through it, and really got to hone in some of the skills that we've been practicing throughout the semester. But yeah, I think this is a useful project, and I've actually used it a couple of times since I made it. So this was pretty fun, and I hope you enjoyed it.